Tonight on The ReidOut,
we will lay out the body of evidence that we have that talks about how the president's tweet on the wee hours of December 19th of Be There, Be Wild was a siren call to these folks.
the marshaling of the mob. Tomorrow, the January 6th committee is expected to show us how Trump's inner circle coordinated with right-wing militia groups to put some muscle and violence behind their efforts to overturn the election. Also tonight, Steve Bannon is a total loser in court in his last-ditch effort to delay his contempt trial. No, Steve, there is no executive privilege for podcasters. Plus, a major announcement tonight from the White House on reproductive rights. But we begin tonight with the American white power movement, once relegated to fringe or extreme, but which has now taken center stage in American politics, and which has declared war on democracy itself. Democracy is a threat to white supremacy and vice versa. And we're about to learn a lot more about the role such movements and groups had on the coordinated bid to agitate crowds into storming the Capitol on January 6th. Like Donald Trump himself, these far-right extremist groups are united in racism, sexism, and a thirst for violence. Also, like Trump, they're a symptom of the collective freakout on the right over the two-term presidency of Barack Obama. The Oath Keepers officially launched in April 2009 in the wake of the country electing its first black president. Here's their leader, Elmer Stewart Rhodes, Yale Law School grad, an expert grifter. He apparently earned that eye patch by dropping his own gun back in 1993. He and fellow members have been charged with seditious conspiracy in the Capitol attack. The citizen militia group claims to be defending the U.S. Constitution, but it's actually one of the largest anti-government groups in the U.S. Back in 2014, Oath Keepers, among others, poured into Nevada in defense of rancher Cliven Bundy, who had defied the federal government by letting his cattle graze on federal land without paying the proper fees. Bundy led an armed standoff against federal agents in the town of Bunkerville, where the agents had arrived to enforce the law and confiscate the cattle. When the situation threatened to get violent, the government backed down and returned the cows to Bundy. The Oath Keepers capitalized on this victory, even though they reportedly fled the scene, angering other militia members. The group made headlines again in Ferguson, Missouri, when armed Oath Keepers held surveillance posts and roamed the streets during the unrest connected to the fatal shooting of Michael Brown by a white police officer. The Proud Boys emerged years later, founded in 2016, the year Donald Trump ran for president, by the founder of Vice News, by the way, Gavin McInnes, sporting some pretty blatant racist views. Here is their most latest leader, who took over from McInnes, Enrique Tarrio, counter-protesting during a gathering to commemorate the first anniversary of the murder of George Floyd. That's right, he's the guy for Derek Chauvin. He was also sent to jail for burning a Black Lives Matter flag that he ripped off a D.C. church. But what really put the Proud Boys on the map was when Donald Trump refused to condemn white supremacist groups during a presidential debate, and instead issued an unambiguous call for the Proud Boys to be ready.
Proud Boys, stand back and stand by.
The Proud Boys made it crystal clear they had heard the message, with stand back, stand by becoming both a rallying cry and a logo for the extremist group. Committee members say these two groups led the assault on the Capitol, an eerie connection further solidified by video of a meeting between Tarrio and Rhodes in a Washington, D.C. garage just 24 hours before the Capitol attack. Both groups will have a starring role in tomorrow's January 6th hearings as federal prosecutors reveal more on their ties to Trump's inner orbit, or even to Trump himself. The AP reports that after Oath Keepers stormed the Capitol, their leader called someone on the phone with an urgent message for Trump. This is based on what another extremist told investigators. New accusations also include an alleged Oath Keeper bringing explosives to D.C. on January 6th, along with allegations that a co-defendant kept a death list with the name of a Georgia election official on it. Tomorrow, we'll hear from a former Oath Keeper spokesman, Jason Van Tatenhove, who will appear as a witness. He's expected to speak about the group's propaganda efforts and radicalization over the years, including how Rhodes capitalized on conspiracy theories to build membership and to make the money roll in. Joining me now is John Wood, former January 6th senior investigator, who's now an independent candidate for U.S. Senate in Missouri. Sandy Bacon, journalist and documentary filmmaker. And Kathleen Belew, associate professor of history at Northwestern University and author of Bring the War Home, the White Power Movement in Paramilitary America. Thank you all for being here. Mr. John Wood, I want to start with you. Welcome to the show. You were an investigator on the committee. Give us a sense of what you expect them to do with the information they bring out about these violent groups, and do you expect them to attempt to connect those groups directly to Donald Trump or to his inner circle?
Well, I think that's what people are going to be looking for, is how much of a connection there is between these domestic violent extremist groups and Donald Trump and his supporters. I don't want to raise expectations too much. I don't know that there will be evidence of a direct coordination between them. But at the very least, I do expect that there's going to be evidence that Donald Trump either knew or should have known of the existence of these groups, and that his actions could inflame the situation because there were these radical supporters of his that could potentially turn violent.
And Ms. Bacon, you were filming a documentary, so I know you've got some video that you brought along with. Tell us what you saw. We're going to roll some of that as you talk about what you saw. You were near or with these groups, or at least some of them, on the 6th. What did you see?
This is Roger Stone being escorted back to the Willard Hotel with the Oath Keepers, which was unusual because the Proud Boys have always been his security for years. And I was really surprised to see them. They escorted him from the Willard and then back to after I filmed his speech. I filmed his speech at Freedom Plaza here.
Okay, and what we're seeing here is them entering the Willard Hotel. We know that that was sort of a war room of sorts for these, I guess, the planning of the insurrection. Did you get a chance to talk to any of these Proud Boys / Oath Keepers? Did they say anything to you of note?
Well, I kind of know Enrique. This was the third rally that most people are not aware of. After Trump lost, my documentary deals with the 2 months after Trump lost. And he, right, Rudy said, just say we won. So on November 14th, there was a rally called the Million MAGA March. And, thousands and thousands of people showed up with the Trump flags, insisting that the election had been stolen because they had been feeding them this big lie for at least a year, So,
and did you get the sense that
2 rallies?
Yeah, go on.
Go ahead.
Well, did you get the sense in talking to Enrique and when you speak to him that they believe themselves to be essentially an army for Trump, that they are Trump's army? Yeah,
there's one part. They kept going. The second rally was on December 12th, and as the rallies continued, they became increasingly more Proud Boys and violent. And the December 12th rally, there were 4 stabbings involving the Proud Boys. So they were really ready for a fight by the 12th. But they kept going out to the Washington Monument, to the mall, and praying like they're going to war. And at one point they say, we're here to stand up for Trump against this stolen election so we can do our work for the next 4 years. So, yes, they were his army.
And we know they were trading messages about also providing protection for at least one congressman, Texas Congressman Ronnie Jackson, who used to be a White House physician when President Obama was there. It's a bit scary to think about. Kathleen Belew, we know that based on the Southern Poverty Law Center's numbers, their stats, white nationalist hate groups grew 55% in the 4 years that Trump was president. That's according to the SPLC. We know that since President Obama, was inaugurated, you had at least 4 major hate groups that were formed: the 3 Percenters, the Oath Keepers, the Proud Boys, and the Boogaloo Boys, who've been involved in some level of violence, each of them. Talk a little bit about the connection between the existence of President Obama and the growth of these groups.
So one mistake that we have made over and over again from the inception of the White Power movement in the late 1970s is to put much more emphasis on the differences between these groups than on viewing this as a broad groundswell of people. So I appreciate the impulse to sort of sort these out and trace trajectories. Certainly the election of our first Black president was a huge factor in recruitment in these groups, as has been COVID, as has been the George Floyd protests and BLM. All of this instability to what some of these folks think of as their traditional way of life has been an enormous soapbox for recruitment. But the headline here is not only the ties between Trump's inner circle and these groups, but their ties with one another. It is through major fact-finding efforts like the commission that we get the big picture of what's going on. And the Historical Archive tells us that that's likely to be a broad groundswell, and possibly one that's not even in command of Trump, even though perhaps he wished it to be, but one that is a guerrilla army that is interested in the overthrow of America.